Alright, so last week or not last week, this Monday, so 2 days ago, we talked about opposition, right? And what opposition was. So in today's class, I don't want to like keep going too far ahead before you guys understand everything. So today we're just gonna like take a review day and look at uh, go back to the fork, the pin. Those are the two tactical themes we're looking at. Then we'll also look at the go over opposition and the rule of the square again. All right. So it's just gonna be a lot of review today. So I think if none of you guys have anything to say before we start, I'll share my screen and we can get started with some fork and pin puzzles. All right. So all of these are gonna be about the fork and the pin. All right. Okay. So this is white to play. This one's not actually a very good one. Let me. Okay. Alright, let's start with this one. This is black to play. So can anybody see a pin right now that for white? Dave?
Uh, Queen to F2.
Nice, alright. Queen takes f2. And now? Tab it.
Um, Also, the bishop could go to B4.
This is black to play. So you're saying bishop b4 here?
Yeah.
Okay, alright. So, and what about Vishnu?
Um, Queen takes knight on G2.
Alright, and we have queen takes knight. Alright, and what about Dave? Do you have another guess?
Yeah. Queen to G1.
Alright, nice. So we have three different options. So let's just look at each one. So the problem with bishop b4 is it doesn't really achieve a lot, right? Because now this bishop is undefended. So what do you guys think white will play?
They'll kill the.
Yeah, they'll take the bishop, right? So white will just take back. And the other option, queen takes d2. That's also not a bad move. We gained a knight, right? But there was actually an even better move, and that was the move that Dave suggested, queen g1 checkmate. So you can see here the idea was there was this battery, right? This pawn couldn't move because behind it the king was in danger. So now if we take the pawn, the king can't take back because our bishop is guarding our queen, right? The king has to move away, and now we can continue giving the check. All right. Is there anyone have any questions? No? All right. So let's keep going. All right. What about here? This is black to play. Yeah, Luisa, you're on mute.
Queen to F4.
It's black to play. You're talking about white, right? So yeah, if it was white to play, yeah, queen takes f4 would be good because you just win the bishop. It's black to play. This one's actually a pretty difficult one. It combines. It's mainly just a fork puzzle, but yeah, Dave.
So, um, knight take pawn G2.
All right, so knight takes g2. That's your guess. All right. What about Vishnu?
Same as Dave.
All right. Okay, so I'm guessing you guys want to take this and. Okay, wait, let me just show it real quick. Why that's not the. Why that doesn't work. Okay, so you guys are saying knight takes g2. So the problem with this is that uh, white can just capture back our knight. And now even if we take this rook, now it looks like it's checkmate, right? because our bishop is guarding the queen, and that's attacking the king. The problem is the white's queen is also defending g2, so he'll take back. Now we take with our bishop. Now white takes back, and now we gave up. What did we give up? So we ended up giving up our knight, queen, and bishop, and we got back our opponent's queen and rook, right? And that's about an equal trade because the queen is worth 9 points, so that cancels out. The rook is worth 5 points, and the knight plus bishop is worth 6 points. So it's around the same, alright? So it doesn't really achieve much for us. So instead, okay, yeah, Viksha.
Couldn't you move the queen to g2 because the knight's guarding it if the queen kills, and then the bishop's guarding it too?
Yeah,
Or
so
is
you're
that
talking.
what we just did?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what we just did. So instead of knight takes g2 right now, you're talking about queen takes g2, right? Well, it'll be a similar thing. Imagine that the rook takes, and now our knight takes. And now the best move for white isn't actually to take back, right? Because he has an extra queen right now. He should probably just keep that queen. But let's say, for example's sake, that white takes back the knight. Now we take back with the queen, and now it's the same position. You see this position and this position? There's no difference, right? Whether we take with the knight first or with the queen first, it ends up being the same thing in the end. Alright, so I'll just give you guys the first move. So this is a pretty difficult one, but the first move is knight takes h3. Alright, and it looks like a good move, right? You're giving a fork between the king, queen, and the rook, right? You're giving a fork all through here. But now when white takes, now there's checkmate in one move. Do you guys see it? Checkmate in one. Tab it.
Queen to h1.
Nice, exactly. Queen h1 checkmate. So this bishop is guarding our queen. That's giving check, right? And the king can't run away to f2 because it's blocked. Alright then, so I'll just show that again. Knight h3. And just, if you guys are wondering, if the king moves away, let's say the king moves to f1, then we can just take the queen, right? And we'll just be gaining a free queen. So if he takes back, then we go queen h1. Alright, what about here? This is black to play. This one's a bit too difficult. Alright, so the move here is queen a6. And with that check, now we're defending our rook. And when the king moves, oh, okay, or when he defends, then we can take, right? And our bishop is guarding our queen. I just wanted to show that because you can see here, even though we're getting attacked 2 times, with our rook is getting attacked and our queen is getting attacked, by going queen a6, we give a check and it also defends our rook so the king can't take the rook. That was just something interesting about that position. Okay, what about here? This is black to play. Okay, yeah, Dave?
Queen to g2.
Alright, so Dave says queen g2. And what about Viksha?
I was gonna say the same as Dave, but okay.
Alright, so let's look at it. Queen takes g2. Alright, so why is this wrong? So, can anybody see what the big pin in this position is? What's the big pin? Viksha?
Wait, but I know why the queen to g2 is wrong.
Yeah, why?
Because the king can kill it, or the queen, or the rook can kill it.
Well, the king can't take it, right? Because it's defended by our bishop and rooks, right? But the main problem is that the rook can take it. So even though we gained a bishop, our opponent will capture back and retake with our queen. So we gained 3 points, but our opponent gained 9 points, right? So, but can anybody see what the big pin in this position is? There's an important pin that's like the main strategy. What piece of white can't move because of a pin? Luisa or Isa? You're on mute.
Queen to h5.
Alright, okay. But what is the major pin in this position? Which piece of white can't move because it's under a pin? Alright, do you want me to go to someone else and then come back to you later?
Yeah.
Okay, alright, what about Vishnu?
The white bishop can't move.
Exactly. This bishop on g2, it can't move, right? And the pin is, there's this enormous pin right here, right? Where black is attacking with the 2 rooks and the queen, which forms a really powerful attack, right? The 3 strongest pieces are all attacking the bishop on g2. And that bishop, behind it is the king. So that's super dangerous for white, right? If the bishop moves, then the king is in danger, so the bishop can't move now. Alright, so now we know where the pin is. And so we are talking about queen g2 and why that's wrong. But what's a different way to capture? Div?
A different way. Rook to g2. I mean, not rook. The other one. I forgot the name.
Which? What
The
square is
one
it on?
that. 3. H.
Bishop?
H.
Yeah, do
Yeah,
you mean the bishop? Okay, yeah, exactly. So bishop takes h3. Now, why is this different from queen takes g2? Or bishop takes g2, and why is this different from queen takes g2? So now let's look at that really quick, alright? So, 1 second, let me just pull this on a different tab. Alright, so here we had the 2 options, bishop takes g2 and queen takes g2. Remember in the other example we looked at before, taking with the bishop or the queen didn't matter because both times it didn't work, right? But here, when you take with the bishop and our opponent takes back with the rook, now we gained a bishop and then our opponent took back a bishop. But here if we did that, we gained a bishop but our opponent would take back with their rook and now we lost a whole queen. Obviously we can still continue with this check, but it doesn't really do anything for us, right? So we go here, let's say white takes, and we take, and now white moves, and now we ended up losing our queen. We lost our queen, a rook, and our opponent only lost a rook and bishop, right? So now, if you see the remaining position, there is our opponent has 2 knights and a rook, and we only have a rook and a bishop, right? So our opponent has extra material at the end. So that's what we should look at the end, who has more material. So here that's white, so that wouldn't be good for us. But if you take with the bishop, now what happens? Rook takes, queen takes, queen takes, rook takes. Now when the king moves, what happens? What's the way to win if white goes king h1? Viksha?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
So the queen and the rook, the 2 rooks are guarding, but is it the bishop at h3 was guarding, right? So it wasn't it 4
Yeah?
pawns guarding?
You mean 4 pieces attacking the opponent's
Yeah,
bishop?
yeah.
Yeah, but uh, I was just pointing out this like special like battery because this is like the 3 strongest pieces are attacking, right?
They
The
are?
bishop is also joining in, but the most important thing is this enormous pin going down here. But yeah, you're right. The bishop is also attacking. That's a good observation. Okay, but back to here. Now, what will black play? Adrian? I can't hear you if you're talking. Wait, can you guys hear him? No?
No,
No.
but I know the
No.
answer.
Alright. Okay, I guess you can try and fix your sound. How about for now, let's go to, Vishnu.
Rook to G1.
Nice. Rook to G1. And this is checkmate, right? Because the king, it can't take our rook on G1 because our rook on G8 is guarding. So now white won't get there. Instead, what if he goes to F1? Now what does black play? Think about what the king was defending on G1. Dave?
Um. I think rook to F2.
Well, the problem with rook to F2 is what will white play? Does anybody see? What can white play here?
I see.
Oh, yeah.
The king can take.
Yeah, the king will just take, right? So that's the problem with that. But the king here, what was it doing? There was a piece that it was defending, right? The knight. And now that the king moves, to F1, it's no longer defending the knight, right? So our rook will just be able to take. So that was the move. Alright, so I'll just show it over here. Take. And now, no matter where he goes, then we'll either have checkmate, or, okay, we'll either have checkmate if the king goes to H1, or king goes to F1, then we can just take the knight. Alright? So does anybody have any questions about this one? This one is a bit more complicated. Viksha?
So, why can't we do the same move as before? Like, why can't the rook go to G1 and then the king can kill the rook or move to the side?
Are you
'Cause
talking about right here? Or
Yeah,
in which position?
the last one that you just showed.
So right here.
Yeah.
So
But when the king is on the other one, at F1.
Alright, so F1, and then what are you saying?
So, what would, like, why couldn't we why couldn't we move the rook to G1?
Yeah, we can move the rook to G1, but the king still has an escape square this time, right? The king can still go to F2. So before, when the king goes to H1, and we go to rook G1, the square above the king the knight is like on that square, so the king can't go there. And he can't go to G2 because our rook is guarding that square, right? Both the rooks are guarding G2, and the opponent's king can't take G1 because our other rook is guarding our G1 rook. But here, when it goes to F1, now if you give rook G1 check, now nothing is guarding the F2 square, so the king can still move there.
Oh.
Alright?
Okay.
Okay. Alright, let's do one more and then we'll do opposition and everything. Alright, that one's not really helpful.
Was it white to move or black to move?
In this position?
Yeah.
This position, it's black to move.
Okay.
Alright, Adrian?
What are we talking about?
So we're looking at the fork and the pin, right? So try and find a way to use a fork in this case specifically to win some material.
Okay.
Dave?
Rook to. Wait, rook to F6.
Nice. Rook to f6. Alright, and now when he takes, what can black play? Dave?
Rook can go to h6.
h6 here?
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, because if the rook goes to h6, there's nothing defending the
Well,
rook, right?
oh wait,
So
I'm
he could just take.
in the middle.
Yeah?
I think
Do you want
f5.
Also, f5 isn't the best square because it's not really like a threatening attack. Because like, what if white just takes the pawn? Do you want to give it to someone else?
Yeah.
All right. What about Viksha?
The rook can kill the bishop at a6.
Yeah. So all the way on the other side of the board, the a6 bishop has just been left completely undefended, right? So playing this fork over here, we're attacking the bishop and the king. So now the king moves, we can take the bishop, right? Okay. So now let's go to the classroom. Alright, but do you guys understand those fork and pin puzzles? So you can see that they're getting harder and harder, right? So as we like get more advanced, you'll start getting harder versions of those puzzles. And I think in like the coming classes, I'm also going to introduce some new tactical themes because we've pretty much understood the fork and the pin, right? We'll start learning about discovered attacks and things like that. Yeah, Viksha?
I forgot the it starts with an O and I don't know what the word is.
Oh, are you talking about the opposition? Is that what we're...
Yeah, I forgot what that was.
Yeah, so we're just doing today, since we've been like the last few classes we've been learning a lot of material, we're just gonna do a review day. So we're gonna like review the opposition and the rule of the square. All right. Okay, so let's get started with what we did most recently, which is opposition. Right. This is what we looked at. Uh, this is what we looked at. Yes, on Monday. Okay. So the example I gave was the two kings enter a race, right? The king goes, if the white king gets the 8th rank and the black king wants to get to the 1st rank, and whoever wins in the shortest number of moves, right? So basically what we talked about is if the two kings just avoided each other and kept moving down without trying to attack each other or like stop each other, then they're both gonna reach in 7 moves, right? So it's equal. But there's a way for white to get there one move faster than black, and that's through something called opposition. Adrian, do you have a question?
They're both not gonna win. If they had one pawn, they could have turned into a queen.
Yeah. So, I get what you're saying. So, yeah, if right now this is just like the basics of how opposition works. But yeah, eventually, if we add like a pawn or two, then it's gonna be important, like how opposition works. But this is just a basics of how opposition is and how the because it's mainly between the two kings, right? It's not between the king and the pawn. So if we learn how it works between the two kings, then we can use that in all other cases as well. All right, Viksha, do you have a question?
Um, can the white king jump over d2 to d3
No,
to get ahead?
the king always only just moves one square, at all times. So at all times it has just one square all around it can move. Okay, so now let's just look at what opposition was, right? So if we have the two kings just move away from each other just to move straight up, they'll both reach in 7 moves. But let's say the two kings do this. Alright, so you can see that the white king and the black king are directly opposite of each other, right? There's only one square in between, and they're directly opposite to each other. And do you guys remember what I said this does? Like, why do we do this? Isa? Oh, you're on mute. Isa, you're on mute.
I did it on accident.
Okay, alright. Viksha?
Both of the kings are guarding c5, d5, and e5. So they have to move to the side to get
Exactly.
around that.
Exactly. That's the main point, right? So now, when the two kings are directly across from each other like this with only one square in between, they're guarding the exact same squares in front of each other, right? So they're both guarding c5, d5, and e5. And that means that neither of the kings can move forward. And since the race is to get to the other side first, you don't want to waste time. You always want to be moving forward. But in this case, it's black's turn to play. Can he move forward? No. He has to move to the side or back. And since you don't really want to go back in a race, imagine if you're in a race, you don't want to go backwards, right? So then the king has to go to the side. And what does this do? Now, you'll see they're both guarding c5, d5, and e5. Now when the black king moves to e6, it's guarding d5, e5, and f5. And that leaves a hole in the wall, right? So imagine that this is a wall on c5, d5, and e5. When it moves to e6, now there's a hole on c5. So the white king can keep moving forward. And now if we continue the race, see, look, now it takes black 8 moves to get to the end, right? It took black 8 moves, but only took white 7 moves. He already got here by move 7 on king c8, but it took black until move 8 to get to king e1, right? So you could see that the white king gained 1 move because of opposition. And so you take the opposition like this, and what do I mean by taking the opposition? Can anybody describe that? Dave? Or was that accident? Oh yeah, Fiksha?
Wait, do we have to wait? What was the question again?
So I was just asking, what does it mean to take the opposition or get the opposition?
To get an extra hole or space to get ahead of the other king.
Yeah, that's like half right. Alright, nice. And what about Isa? You're on mute. Isa, you're on mute.
You have you're like forcing the other king to go sideways.
Yeah, so basically to get the opposition means you're the you are the your king is the one that moves next to your opponent's king and has like this one square across from each other. They're facing off against each other, right? Now if black was the one, like for example in this case, if black played king e5 and now the kings are facing off against each other directly opposite, then that means that black gets the opposition, alright? And that's because we say that because black is getting the opposition because now white is the one that's forced to move sideways, right? It's white's turn to move and he can't move forward, he has to move to the side. So now you'll see this time black wins the race. Alright, so like that. To get the opposition means it's your side that puts your king directly across from your opponent's king. Alright? So does anybody have any questions about opposition? Dave?
Does it come very often, or?
Yeah, it's actually might look like it's kind of nuanced right now, but when you're playing in pawn endgames, which is like one of the most common types of endgames, it's really like common. You'll see it like almost every 5 moves there'll have to be like 1 or 2 moves of opposition. That's one of the main goals in pawn endgames is to actually get the opposition, because if you get the opposition, it's a lot easier to win. Yeah, Adrian.
You could also like I could tell like the moves
Yeah.
for the black king and the white king.
Yeah.
Um, when the white king comes to d3 and then the black king goes to f4
Yeah.
and then the white king goes to d4.
Mhm.
and then the black king goes to maybe like f5.
Here.
Yeah, and then the white king like goes to d5. Like they will like chase them forever.
Yeah, cause like this is just two kings, right? If we added a pawn, then black could like let's say black had a pawn on g6, then you can use something. You could use opposition in a technique called like blocking. Basically, it's an extension of what opposition is, and you can push your pawn, right? But right now, yeah, since it's only two kings, they're just gonna end up chasing each other around and giving opposition, right? But this is just for example's sake. Okay, so now let me give you guys a few not positions really, but a few examples. Okay, so it's white to play here, and what does white play to get the opposition? Where should white's king go? Okay, Vishnu.
E4.
Yeah, the white king would go to e4, right? Now they're directly in front of each other, so then that means black has to move sideways or backwards. Alright, what about now? Where would white go to get the opposition? Let's see, how about Adrian?
A king to d4. I mean d5.
Nice, the white king would go to d5, right? Okay, and what about, let's look at it from black's perspective. Alright, let's say, this was the position. Where would the black king go to get the opposition? Uh, Dave? You're on mute.
So black would go to D6.
Nice, the black king would go to d6, right? So, and what about here? Tabit, where would the black king go?
E5.
Nice, the black king would go to e5, and now he has the opposition, right? So I think you guys basically get the general idea, right? You have to get your king to face off with your opponent's king with one square in between. And remember, it can't be diagonal like this. You can say there's only one square, but they're not guarding the same squares, right? The black king can still move forward and the white king can still move forward, all right? So it has to be directly in front of each other like this. And I think we also talked about how if it's like this and they're like sideways, for right now we're not going to consider it a type of opposition, but eventually, yeah, we'll learn about this. And this is not diagonal, side to side opposition, when the two kings are on the sides of the board, because they can't move. The black king can't move to the right, and the white king can't move to the left. This is something important for later on, but right now we're just going to focus on top to bottom. All right. The white king can't move down right now, and the black king can't move up. So that means the white king has to move to the side right now because black has the opposition. How about let's look at a few examples of who currently has the opposition, alright? So right now, who has the opposition? Who just got the opposition? Viksha?
White.
No, but here it's
Wait,
actually
no, I
black.
mean black.
Yeah, because black was the one who played the move, and now he has the opposition. White is the one who's being forced to move to the side, right? Because it's black just played, so now white has to move either to f2 or d2 or behind. Okay, what about here? Now who just got the opposition? Tabit?
White.
Nice, white just got the opposition because he was the one who played king d3. Alright, what about now? Who just got the opposition? Dave?
Black.
Yeah, because black just played. Alright, so I think you guys know that's the basic like workings of what opposition is and how it works. So it was kind of basic, right? So we learned Now, this is like the most basic level of opposition, and then next we have to apply it into pawn endgames, because this is just two kings, right? You can't win with just a king. You need at least a pawn to promote that pawn. So now that we've understood what opposition is with just the two kings, now we're gonna add some pawns and then see how you can use opposition in a pawn endgame to actually promote your pawn and everything. All right? Okay, so I think that's good enough for now, but let's go on to what we were looking at before, which is
Is it a fork and a pin?
sorry.
Is it a fork and pins?
Oh, is that right now we're doing rule of the square.
Ah,
So, oh, whoopsies. Okay. This is black to play. All right. So this is right now black to move. All right. So does anybody remember what the rule of the square is? Isa, you're on mute.
When a pawn has like a territory that the king has to get into unless they're gonna get a king. I mean queen
Nice,
or
exactly.
something.
That's exactly what the rule of the square is. So the pawn, if it has a square around it, right? There's a certain like area around it. And if the opponent's king can't get inside that square, then the pawn can freely turn into a queen. It doesn't have to worry about defending against the other king, right? With our king. So right now, uh what are the four corners of this pawn square? Remember, this pawn is going up. So what are the four corners of this pawn square? Viksha?
the four corners of this pawn square is the pawn is one of the corners, so it's A7,
Hmm.
F7, A1, and A1.
So you said F7, A1, and what was the last one?
F1.
F1. Okay, so this is close. I think you probably just miscounted, but it's actually G1 and G7 and G1, alright?
Ah,
But basically, you could see uh you, if you guys forgot how to do this, how to find this square, you count how many moves it takes until our pawn turns into a queen. So right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 moves until our pawn turns into a queen, right? And you count that many squares to the side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then now you just fill in the square. Go down 6, then right to the 6. And this is the square. And if our opponent's king, so this here, white's king, is inside the square or on the border, like it is right now, then that means that the king can catch up to our pawn, alright? So for example, alright, let's keep going. Right now, someone other than Viksha, because she already answered for one rule of the square. Now, what are the four corners of the square this time? Isa?
F6, A6, A1, and wait no, A, A, F, F1 and yeah.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, this is right? So it's 5 squares this time until the pawn turns into queen. So now you only go 5 squares to the side. So now this is the square that our pawn is covering, right? So now can the white king get inside the square this time? Revanche? Oh, no, not Revanche. I meant Vishnu.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah, he can, right? And what is an example of a square that white can go to get inside the square? Yeah, Vishnu. Okay. How about Tabit then?
F5.
Yeah, f5 is one possible square, right? And now he's inside the square. Alright, now let me just play a few moves. Alright, what about right now? What are the four corners of the black pawn square? Dave?
So A3, A2, A1, and so B3, B2.
I just need the corners of the square. I don't need all the squares.
Oh, A3, A1, and C. Wait, D. 4 and then D1. I
Like you mean
mean
a4.
D3 and then D1.
It's actually a4. So remember, it's always the square that the pawn is currently on. So it wouldn't be a3. It would be a4 for one of the corners. All right. But yeah, you're right. So this is a4, d4, d1, and a1. So now can the white king get inside the square? Viksha?
Yes, it can move diagonally to d4.
Nice. The king can move diagonally to d4, and now it's inside the square. So, you guys basically understood it, right? So I'll just show you real quick. If the king just keeps moving in, a1, c3, c1, a3, a1, c3, c1. All right. Now the king can still get inside. So now you can see at the end when the king is right next to the pawn, when the pawn turns into a queen, now the king can just take her queen, right? Now this is a draw, right? It's only two kings. We can't do anything with that. So this, remember, the rule of the square, it only works on the A file or the H file. It does not work anywhere in the middle, right? So if you have a pawn on the D file, for example, you have to use opposition to win. You can't use rule of the square to win. So rule of the square is a bit more, I think Dave asked this question, right? So how common is opposition? So opposition is super common because if you have a pawn on the G, F, E, D, C, or B files, then you're going to need to use opposition to win. Rule of the square is a bit more nuanced. Only if your pawn is on the A file or H file, so the two corner files, that's the only time you'll need the rule of the square, alright? Adrian, do you have a question?
The pawn has to turn to a queen to do 7 moves.
Yeah, so the pawn has 7 moves to turn into a queen, right? So, yeah, you gotta be quick with opposition or a rule of the square. If you just move your king back and forth, it's not gonna help. It's really important to quickly get your pawn there so you can turn it into a queen, or else your opponent can defend. Okay, so, I think that was pretty much all the review of opposition and rule of the square. Do you guys have any more questions? No? No questions? Alright then, so just remember, our next class, which is on Monday, next Monday, September 30th, that will be an in-person class. So it's actually going to be at Natoma Station, and it's going to start at 5 p.m., right? So I'll send you more details about that to your parents, so you guys don't have to worry about anything. But yeah, I'll send details of that to your parents later, alright? So I will see you guys then.
I'm staying.
Alright,
Bye.
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 Bye.